In a small, peaceful town nestled between rolling hills and ancient trees, I lived with my family in a quiet corner of the city. Our home was modest but cozy, filled with love and the scent of my mom's cooking. My name is Alex, and I was only 12 then, an ordinary sixth grader in an ordinary town, or so it seemed. What most people didn't know was how much I wrestled with my own fears and insecurities. On the surface, I was that energetic kid, always out running, laughing, and kicking a soccer ball, but inside, a storm was brewing. Soccer was my world, my escape, and my passion. Almost every day after school, I would head to the nearby public field. The sharp sound of the ball against my foot, the wind rushing past me as I ran, and the cheering of friends made me feel alive. But one day, everything changed. I remember walking home that afternoon, the sun casting long shadows on the pavement, and something about that day felt heavier. I couldn't shake the weight pressing on my chest. As soon as I got home, I dropped my bag and slumped onto the couch, lost deep in thought. I stared at my math book, flipping through the pages without really seeing them. Numbers blurred together, dancing on the page like a cruel joke. I leaned back, sinking into the cushions, my mind spinning with frustration. No matter how hard I tried, math was like a locked door I couldn't open. My dad, who had just come in from tending to his plants in the backyard, must have sensed something was wrong. He walked over and sat beside me, his presence calm and grounding. "What's troubling you, Alex?" he asked gently, concern lacing his voice. I hesitated, unsure how to put my thoughts into words, but eventually I let it out. "Dad, I got a bad grade in math again," I muttered, avoiding his eyes. "But that's not all. Liam, my best friend, always gets top marks without even trying. It's like he's a genius or something. I just don't get it. Why can't I be like him?" My dad listened carefully, nodding as I spoke. Without a word, he stood up and walked to the kitchen, returning moments later with a glass of water, handing it to me as if it would calm the storm inside. Once I took a sip, my dad gestured for me to follow him outside. We stepped into our small backyard, a quiet oasis filled with shady trees and the soft chirping of birds. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and for a moment, I felt at peace. "Alex," he began, "there are 3 important lessons I want you to learn from this experience. Lessons that will shape the person you become." His voice was calm but serious, and though I was still confused, something inside me stirred with curiosity. "3 lessons?" I echoed, unsure what he meant. "Yes," he said with a smile that almost made me feel lighter. "But you'll learn each lesson by facing a challenge, one by one." My heart thumped in my chest. Challenges? What kind of challenges? But before I could ask, he gave me my first task. "Tomorrow, I want you to invite Liam to play soccer with you." My eyebrows shot up. Soccer? That was easy, or so I thought. "Okay, Dad, but what's that got to do with math?" I asked. He only smiled knowingly. "You'll see," he replied softly, leaving me to wonder what lesson awaited. The next morning, the sun peeked through my curtains, casting a golden glow on my room. I felt a mix of excitement and nerves as I got ready for school, my dad's words still ringing in my ears. As soon as the final school bell rang, I found Liam waiting at the gate, his usual cheerful self. "Hey, want to play soccer today?" I asked casually, trying to mask the anticipation bubbling inside me. He grinned wide. "Sure, let's do it." So we headed to the field. The sky painted in hues of orange and purple as the sun began to set. As soon as the game began, my feet seemed to move on their own, fueled by hours of practice. I dribbled, dodged, and kicked with precision, scoring 3 goals effortlessly. The wind whipped through my hair as I sprinted, feeling that rush of adrenaline I always craved. But Liam, he struggled. He kept missing the ball, tripping over his own feet, and making mistakes. It was strange to see him like that, clumsy and unsure, especially when he was always so confident in class. Yet despite it all, we laughed, we cheered, and we had fun. Something about it felt important. After the game, I wiped sweat from my brow and rushed home, eager to share the experience with Dad. As I stepped into the backyard, there he was, waiting for me under the shade of the old oak tree. "Dad, I played soccer with Liam, just like you said. But he wasn't good at all," I said, still catching my breath. Dad looked at me with a gentle smile and said, "And there's your first lesson, Alex. Everyone has different strengths. Liam struggles at soccer, but he's great at math. Just like how you shine in soccer but find math tough." His words sank into me like stones thrown into a pond, rippling through my thoughts. It was the first time I truly saw it that way, that maybe I didn't have to be like Liam to be good enough. But still, questions lingered in my mind. "What's the second lesson, Dad?" I asked eagerly, feeling a strange mix of hope and anticipation. Dad chuckled softly and said, "Tomorrow, I want you to pay close attention to Liam. Watch how often he practices math, how he interacts with numbers. You might discover something important about how people get good at what they do." As I lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, my mind buzzed with curiosity. What would I find if I watched Liam closely? Was there some secret to being good at math, something I was missing? The wind howled outside, rattling the window panes as if nature itself was whispering secrets to me. I couldn't wait for tomorrow to come. Sleep felt distant, but eventually I drifted off, dreams swirling with numbers and soccer balls, my dad's voice echoing in my head. Little did I know that what I was about to learn would change the way I saw myself forever. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, the excitement of my secret mission making it impossible to sleep any longer. At school, I watched Liam carefully, observing his every move like a detective trying to solve a mystery. During math class, his pencil danced quickly over the page, his eyes focused, lips moving as he whispered calculations. At recess, while others ran around, he sat under a tree solving puzzles in a tiny notebook. Even during lunch, I saw him counting things, like pieces of fruit. It was as if math was part of him, like breathing. By the time the final bell rang, I couldn't believe how much math Liam did without even thinking about it. As we walked home, I kept thinking about my dad's words, realizing for the first time that Liam wasn't just magically good at math. He practiced all the time. When I reached home, Dad was already in the garden, waiting, as if he knew I had made a discovery. I sat beside him and blurted out, "Dad, Liam practices math constantly. It's like he lives and breathes numbers." Dad smiled as though he had been expecting that answer. "Exactly, Alex," my father said, leaning back against the tree trunk. "That's your second lesson. If you want to be good at something, you have to practice, just like Liam does with math and you do with soccer." I sat there, the sun setting and casting golden rays through the branches, feeling like a light had been turned on inside my mind. I realized then that talent wasn't just luck. It was effort, time, and dedication. But before I could ask, Dad added, "There's still one more lesson left, and tomorrow will be your final challenge." That night, as I sat on my bed, I thought about what Dad had said. I glanced at my soccer ball resting in the corner and realized how much time I spent kicking it, chasing it, practicing my shots. No wonder I was good at soccer. I had been training without even realizing it. If I wanted to be good at math, maybe I had to do the same. But what would tomorrow bring? I felt a strange nervousness in my chest, wondering what my father's final challenge would be, and whether I had the courage to complete it. When morning came, I found Dad waiting at the breakfast table, a serious look in his eyes. "Today, Alex," he said slowly, "I want you to think about how much better Liam is at math than you." I blinked at him, unsure where this was going. "I guess, maybe 3 times better?" I answered hesitantly. Dad nodded. "Then your challenge is to study math 3 times harder than usual. Put in as much effort as you do with soccer. Push yourself to see what happens when you give it everything." His words made my heart pound, but I agreed. After school that day, I sat down at my desk, determined to give it my all. I opened my math book and started working on problems one after another. At first, I felt strong, focused, like I could conquer anything. But after an hour, my head began to ache, and the numbers swam on the page. I wanted to stop, but I pushed myself harder, reminding myself of Liam's effort and my dad's words. By the second hour, the pain in my head grew worse, my eyes heavy, but still, I continued, determined not to give up easily. As the third hour approached, my body felt like it couldn't go on. My head throbbed as if it would burst, and before I knew it, I fell asleep, right there on my math book, my pencil still in hand. It was like my body had said, "Enough." I didn't even hear Dad come in until I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. "Alex, wake up," he whispered softly. "Dinner's ready. Come join us." His voice was calm, but I felt a deep shame inside. I had failed the challenge, or at least, that's what I thought. After dinner, we sat together in the garden again, the night sky filled with stars twinkling above us. I looked down, not wanting to meet Dad's eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice cracking. I couldn't finish. I tried so hard, but my head hurt too much. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder and smiled kindly. "Alex," he said, "that is the third lesson. Sometimes when you don't love something, it's hard to stay consistent, even if you push yourself. But when you love what you do, like you love soccer, effort feels lighter, even joyful." His words sank deep into my heart. I thought back to soccer and realized how easily I spent hours playing, practicing, running without ever feeling tired. But with math, every minute had been a struggle. "So what should I do, Dad?" I asked quietly. He looked out at the stars and said, "Either study what you love or learn to love what you study. Find joy in learning and you'll go far." That night, as I lay in bed, his words echoed in my mind, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Somehow I felt lighter, freer, understanding something profound. From that day forward, I began to approach math differently. Instead of seeing it as a monster I had to fight, I tried to see it as a puzzle, like a game that could be fun to solve. I also reminded myself that just because I wasn't naturally good at something didn't mean I couldn't improve with practice. And every time I started to feel frustrated, I thought about soccer, how many times I had missed shots before I became good. Slowly, math stopped being my enemy and became something I could handle, bit by bit, like small victories. Now, when I look back on those days, I smile. I realized that my father had given me gifts far greater than just advice about school. He had taught me how to approach life itself, to respect my own strengths, to value the effort behind talent, and to never forget that joy is a key to persistence. And even now, when new challenges come my way, I remember the lessons learned in that little backyard, under the shade of those trees, with my father's wise words guiding me through every obstacle.